All right, hello all, my name is Paul, and I could be considered sort of the custodian of poetry-related matters here at BPL, and so that allows me the honor and privilege of introducing our reader for this evening, Wisconsin Poet Laureate Brenda Cárdenas. Cárdenas has had a distinguished career as a poet and teacher. Born and raised in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, she's also lived in Beaver Dam, Fond du Lac, Appleton, and Menasha. She earned her undergraduate degree at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, a teaching certification in English and Spanish from the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh, and a Master of Fine Arts in Creative Writing Poetry from the University of Michigan. She is Professor Emerita of English at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, where she taught creative writing and U.S. Latinx literatures. Her books include Trace, which won the 2023 Society of Midland Authors Award for Poetry, and was a silver winner of the Forward Review Indie Poetry Prize, and Boomerang. She has also published 3 chapbooks and co-edited anthologies such as Resist Much, Obey Little, Inaugural Poems to the Resistance, and Between the Heart and the Land, Latina Poets in the Midwest. Her poems have appeared in prestigious journals and anthologies, including Poetry, American Poetry Review, Prairie Schooner, and the Library of America's Latino Poetry Anthology. Cárdenas is known for blending poetry with other art forms. She has collaborated with musicians, composers, visual artists, and choreographers. Notably, her poem, Para los Tintuteros, thank you, was set to choral music by Daniel Alfonso and performed by the National Concert Choir at Carnegie Hall in 2024. She also engages in ekphrastic poetry, creating works in response to visual art, and has developed projects where poems inspire visual art and vice versa, fostering collaborative creativity across disciplines. Cárdenas began her term as Wisconsin's Poet Laureate in January 2026 and will serve through 2027. She previously served as Milwaukee Poet Laureate from 2010 to 2012. As the state's ambassador of poetry, she travels across Wisconsin to conduct workshops, readings, and projects aimed at inspiring creativity and making poetry accessible to all communities. Her current initiative focuses on ekphrastic poetry, where participants respond to visual art with poems, which then inspire new artistic creations, creating a continuous creative dialogue. In addition to her book awards, Cárdenas has received Prairie Schooner's Strauss Award, the University of Wisconsin System Outstanding Women of Color in Education Award, the Roberto Hernandez Center's Latin Heritage Month Award, and the English Department's Faculty Graduate Teaching Award at UW-Milwaukee. Her work has also been recognized nationally, including through the Poetry Out Loud competition, where a student recited her poem, Zaquin Papalotes? Zaquin Papalotes. Thank you. And lastly, if I may humbly say, we are very lucky to have a poet laureate who creates work that not only confronts the complex and oppressive systems of life, but resoundingly thrives when addressing how the great mysteries of the poem can perhaps deliver us. Please give us a warm welcome, please give a warm welcome to our Poet Laureate, Brenda Cárdenas.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm so happy to be here at Beloit. It's pretty close to home. I live in Milwaukee, and so you're only about an hour and 15 minutes away. Happy to be here, and thank you for that beautiful introduction. I actually became Poet Laureate in 2025. So it's a 3-year term, and it has been great fun. And I've met people all over the state because you travel, that's what you do. You drive all over the state and try to be an ambassador for poetry in the state and help people to come to poetry and realize that it doesn't have to be something that they have to be afraid of, right? Not afraid of reading it or listening to it or writing it. So that's what I've been doing, workshops, talks, readings, and it's a lot of fun. So I'm going to read and I'll comment in between, give you some context for the poems, some of my own personal background, and then if you have questions after, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. I thought I would start with a poem. I'm going to be reading also new poems that were written since Trace. Trace came out in 2023. I'm now working on another book. I have all the poems for it, I just have to do the arrangement. And so I'll be reading poems from after that book, as well as poems from the two books. So I'm just going to start with this poem called Lineage. And I wrote the poem for my great-grandmother on my father's side, whom I never met. And in the poem, I'm speaking to her. And at one point, we're speaking about her son and what happened to her son in Mexico. That son would have been my grandfather, who I definitely did know. He was the one who migrated to the United States and then went back and got the whole family, and they all came here to Milwaukee. So lineage, para la bisabuela I never knew, or for the great-grandmother I never knew. There are a few words in Spanish in here. Some of them you're probably familiar with, like burros are donkeys, and most people know that word. Aguacate is the word for avocado. And la Adelitas bandolera. So during the Mexican Revolution, women fought alongside the men. And the women soldiers who fought in the revolution were called Adelitas, las Adelitas. And they wore just like the men did. You've seen, if you've ever seen pictures of Emiliano Zapata or Pancho Villa, you see the X of bullets across the chest, and the women wore those as well. So that's called a bandolera in Spanish. Lineage. Our lineage. 8 burros fencing a single aguacate tree in the middle of an open field. This is where you kneel. Hide behind the blinking eyes, soft bellies of a breathing shield, tails smacking at buzz-stung air. Torches burn barns to the ground behind you. Daughters grasping both your hands, youngest slung across your breast like la Adelita's bandolera, all because you packed a lunch, tied a sprig of mint in your son's hat. The soldiers said he was feeding revolutionaries, so they bound his hands and marched him blindfolded 3 days to the next village, where a noose wreathed his neck, feet planted like stones on a crate. What if you hadn't burst in, breathless and begging, just before they kicked it out from under him, from under the church that received his sun-beaten body, soaked rags and raindrops of water on clay lips, from under the train that hauled him north with the woman who housed seeds that would sprout ears perked for each other's screaming when she pushed all of us into the singed world with no ring of stubborn creatures to shield us. So that poem is, biographical in that that did actually happen to my grandfather. He was accused of feeding the revolutionaries, but really it was just his own lunch. And they did take him to another town. They were about to hang him. And his mother somehow got wind of it, got news, got there and begged for his release. And they let him go, which was like, who would think? It sounds like a movie. It sounds like this didn't really happen, but it did really happen, right? And hence we are all here, right? The rest of my family. So that's our start. That was our start, at least in the United States. And I've been thinking a lot, these days, as I can't, it's, no matter someone's opinion, everybody I think is thinking about immigration, migration, not only because we have so much deportation going on right now and so much detention of people who are immigrants or migrants, but even we have a lot of people who are climate refugees, climate migrants. They're having to move because of climate change, affecting, the ways in which they made a living, their crops or whatever it is. So there's always been movement of people, as we know, but I think right now many of us are very keenly aware of that. As was mentioned in the introduction, I write a lot of different kinds of poems. I write narrative poems that tell stories. I write lyric poems that sort of hold a moment, all different kinds. And I do really love ekphrasis, which I simply define as poetry that's inspired by visual art. Okay, poetry inspired by visual. And one artist that I have written a number of poems in response to, his name is Eric Ricardo de Luna Enel, and he created a set, actually it's his own loteria deck. Loteria is a game that Mexicans and Mexican Americans play that's very much like bingo, except instead of there being numbers on the cards that you cover, there are little pictures, little like childlike drawings, very simple drawings of objects like a drum, a tree, the sun, and then the word in Spanish for it below that. So the sun, the picture of the sun with El Sol, right? And the caller will just call out El Sol, and you cover it, just like in bingo, they call one, and you cover the one. Only if you get a clever caller, rather than calling out the word, they will make up a little poem or a little rhyme, a little riddle, and you have to guess what one to cover. And so this artist made his own loteria deck called 100 Names for Death. And really, I mean, in Mexico, we do have hundreds of words, hundreds of names that we give death. There's sort of an obsession, I guess, with death. As you may know from holidays like Day of the Dead or Dia de los Muertos, where we have all the little dancing skeletons and etc. So this artist, this is an example, these are examples of them. He's got La Jodida, or the screwed one, and she's got this huge, she's a skeleton with this huge stack of wood on her back. And then he's got La Huesos, or the bones, and she's got a stack of birds in cages on her back. And this one, La Carcona, and she's carrying the load of the child on her back. And there are many others, right? But these three had that in common for me, the weight that they're all carrying. And so I wrote this poem called Cien Nombres para la Muerte, 100 Names for Death, Las Jodidas, the Screwed Ones. We are bent from the loads we've carried, strapped to our bony backs, sacks of maíz, hierbas, frijoles, bundles of firewood, jerry jugs of precious agua. Each Saturday, we haul tall stacks of caged birds to the mercado to sell their captive songs, their laments our heaviest burden. Hobble a mile in our ragged huaraches, holes in their tire-tread soles. Follow us to the village of whispers, where the only gritos belong to the wind, empty doorways grown over with weeds, our men's dusty boots waiting years for their return. Look into the cenotes. A cenote is a deep lake that's like a well. Look into the cenotes of our eyes. You'll find no fish, no flores, no monedas, no coins, only sacrifices with their mouths full of mud and the dread of our itchy grins. Then tell us you would never risk wrapping your little lamb in a rebozo, grabbing your withered staff and heading north, devil sun, scorpion, migra be damned. You'd fly for the birds whose latches you could not unlock. You'd fly so the only satchel your daughter hoists on her shoulders is heavy with libros, lápices y sueños, books, pencils and dreams. You'd fly never believing they would wrest her from your back and lock her in a cage. So that was written when children were being detained at the border and still are being locked up in prisons. And so that has bothered me all along and still does. And then when I saw these, somehow that all came together and the poem happened. So I'm just going to read one more for the moment that has to do with that topic, and then I'm going to move on to different subjects and different topics. And this is a poem, a short little poem I wrote. This was in the American Poetry Review, and it's called Deportation. We were all once citizens of snow, born beneath the stretched skins, taut tarps of our sisters and brothers. Stateless citizens of desert doorways so low our kin had to bow to greet us as we entered the ark of this world. We each held a bowl of slate blue sky, and wherever we carried it welcomed us home. See, there are no nations, no papers, no passports. There are no quotients in this genius heritage, only jungles of bougainvillea that reach like bodies to the morning sun, iguana tails smacking still air. Only ladders to other levels of love. Every Friday morning, I write with a group of women writers. We just created it on our own. We do it on Zoom because we're all over the country. And one of us even teaches at NYC Abu Dhabi, so she's at Abu Dhabi. So the rest of us, it's various different times in the morning. We're all with our coffee, and she's got her wine because it's nighttime there. We're all over, and we get together, and we somebody brings a poem that they've read recently, a published poem, not their own, right? And we read that poem that none of us has written. We talk about it. We talk about the craft of it. What is it that the writer is doing to make this happen or that happen? And we come up with prompts from that discussion. And then we bring up a grid on a Google Doc so that everybody can access it at once. And by grid, I just mean like a table, right? Blank with blanks. And we all start feeding words into it. And some of those words come from the conversation we just had, the poem we just read. Some of them are just our favorite words. We like the sound of them or the meaning of them, or they're stuck in our head for some reason. And we populate that. And we can see each other's words coming in there. And then we turn off our mics, we turn off our cameras, and we write for half an hour. And you can use any of the words that you want to in the grid or not any. This morning, I wrote a poem. I never looked at the grid of words. Usually, I'm using all kinds of words from there. But you can do whatever it is you want. You can use the prompts or not. And then we just share. And this poem became itself because of that grid. Because the word citizen was over here, and the word snow was over here, and the word there was over here. We all want citizens. And so I love language. Not always sometimes I get the story I'm going to tell or whatever, but a lot of times I just begin with a line, a phrase, and I enjoy more and more starting poems that way. So that gives you that. All right, now, so I grew up in this sort of crazy household in that my father was Mexican-American. My mother was German-American. We lived in a 2-flat. My aunt and uncle owned the home, and they lived on the first level. My family rented the upper. My aunt and uncle, the aunt was my father's sister, Elia, Mexican-American. She married a first-generation immigrant from what was then Yugoslavia, Carl. So I just heard all these languages happening, all these accents, all these different languages, and I would just like mimic what they were, whatever they were saying or whatever they were doing. and all these different foods, and it was really beautiful in that way because we just had all this mix of things happening. And this poem gives you a sense of what that was like as a child. So I'm going to read it to you. It's called, and the word tia means aunt, auntie, and there's a phrase, in abuelito means grandpa or grandfather. There's a phrase, sana sana colita de rana. And that's just something that it's usually women do, like when you're a child, if you fall and you scrape your knee, they go, sana sana colita de rana. Si no sanarás hoy, sanarás mañana. They do this little rhyme. And you don't want to translate it literally, because if you do, it means like blessed, heal it, little frog's tail. So maybe, I don't know where that came from. Maybe the curanderas, the like healers, I don't know. But it's very common. It's as common as spraying Bactine on it and kissing it would be here. So that's in this poem. When we moved away from Tia Elia's and Uncle Carl's, 1968, I almost stayed put. We lived above them, see? The minute the door creaked open, me shouting from the top stair, Uncle Kaku, come get me. Tia Elia told me stories day and night, taught me to draw, paint, write. I wouldn't climb home until my eyes had grown heavy as the whole planet. She put magic spice in the food, made it taste like what people must eat in heaven or Mexico. She'd sing sana, sana, colita de rana all over my bumps and bruises, and believe me, they would disappear. Uncle Carl always wanted me to teach him to spell night, knife, all those silent letter words, because he escaped from Yugoslavia when he turned 14 and was still learning English. He learned Spanish pretty well, abuelito's kind that calls owls tecolotes and straws popotes. Tia Elia's phone conversations with Tia Chole never got past him. He taught me to say English and German, I want to go to work. Then we tried to add Spanish, but wound up sounding like Hansel and Gretel in a taqueria. They named me Cacahuate Mantequilla Princess Red Cheeks, and I was the queen of peanut butter, sticking to them like a sandwich to the roof of your mouth. Cacahuate Mantequilla is peanut butter. And they called me that because I would stick my finger in the peanut butter. But interestingly, Cacahuate Mantequilla Princess Red Cheeks, that was the invention of the Slovenian, not of the Mexican. So that was the kind of house it was, and I never wanted to leave. And when my parents bought their own home, just half a mile up the road, if that, I was devastated, until I realized, oh, it's right there. I can still go see them all the time. So that was that. Now, I have a poem to read that is almost like it was written for tonight, right? For this week, the weather this week, right? It's called Fat Red Tornadoes, okay? And it's another little narrative poem about childhood. I'm in the childhood kind of section of the reading now. Every summer in the Midwest, mosquito-luring sweat simmering on our necks, we ankle biters relished the midday sirens, radio, and flashlight. All our little feet padding downstairs to the cool basement where we had to wait out the warning. Mom and Grandma described fat winds spinning into funnels they called tornadoes. But I thought they'd said tomatoes and pictured giant red fruits twirling like supercharged tops in the air, ready to splash ketchup all over our windows, then gang together, their menacing eyes poking out of thin skin and sharp teeth ready to chop me in two. This was my nightmare, until I finally watched the swarming funnel in Kansas pull Dorothy's house up by the roots and throw it down hard on the witch's striped socks and glistening red shoes. Then I understood that tornadoes ate everything in their path, including my little piggies, baby brother, and all the tomatoes Grandma spent afternoons tending in her garden. Tomatoes don't have feet to walk away, so I couldn't figure out why she wrapped them in chicken wire until one day it dawned on me that the wires were prison cells because tornadoes were really gangs of tomatoes ready to turn us all into sauce. So just what will happen with a misunderstanding of one word, right? I had this whole wild thing pictured in my head. And I will read another one from that, but from childhood. One more of those, one or two more of those. My poor mother, she gifted me as a child, her dollhouse from when she was a little girl. And so that dollhouse, she was born in 38, so it was probably the 40s. And you remember they were tin? They were made out of tin. And then the everything, like the windows and curtains, it was all like lithographed on there. And this tells a story of what became of that dollhouse. It's called Underwater. I actually wrote this poem a while back when all the houses were being foreclosed on. That was 2008, 2009, remember? And yeah, okay. And so underwater meant something different, right? Underwater. We didn't anticipate rust, how it could climb walls, eat eaves, chew holes in the roof that blistering July we submerged Mom's vintage tin colonial, flooding its retro rooms, 40s suburbia sinking like a submarine to the bottom of our plastic pool. We never imagined splotches of red-orange dust would splash like an action painting above the mantel, drip down the lithographed curtains. Ours was the era of hula hoops, Ouija boards, and twisting limbs across a mat of giant polka dots. After shows like Lost in Space and Hello Down There, we played Underwater Sea Family. Pink crib and playpen floated about the nursery while plastic parents swam from room to room trying to catch their bobbling toddlers. Then the mom drifted downstairs to load her Ringer washing machine. Dad to the John, always overflowing. Neighbors thought nothing of diving through open windows to deliver seaweed pie or return baby brother whose lullaby had carried him off in the current when we were busy holding down the refrigerator stove and 6 kitchen chairs. Underwater sea kids would never have to dry dishes or scrub behind their ears. No dusting, sweeping, mopping, paradise in 2.5 feet of water, way down below the ocean, where I wanna be, she may be. Even decided to use our goldfish for the family pet, but when chlorine killed Fido, we settled for a rubber barracuda. The proportions weren't right, sort of like the Flintstones with a dinosaur for a dog, but the ocean made monstrous claims anyway, prehistoric hagfish, mermaids, selkies. Who knew what might be possible? In November, when the first snow fell and Mom stormed the garage for a shovel, she found her Cold War childhood cracked and leaning like a Mississippi shack in the corner, ruined. In the gloom of all our soggy faces, Who knew we'd grow up to live in a whole neighborhood of underwater houses? That crustaceous sea people would emerge from the waves with their fins tucked in and walk away as if occupying land for the first time. So I don't know that she ever forgave me for ruining her dollhouse. But we had a blast anyway, so putting it in the pool, and then, but unfortunately, didn't dry it off, and there it went. It rusted. Okay, as long as I did that, I'm going to do another poem that I wrote for my mother. My mother just passed away on March 30th, and we just had her funeral. And so she's obviously on my mind quite a bit right now, and I'd like to read this for her. This is called Blues Mama. My mother loved the blues and jazz. We listened to it all the time as children on the stereo, and she could sing. So this is called Blues Mama. Give me a pig's foot and a bottle of beer, bellows my mama as she drifts about the house, dancing with her dust mop, wailing with her records, Bessie and Billy, Louie and Duke, BB and Nat King Cole, the Count and Ray Charles. I wait for each record to drop, for Mama's voice to climb into its grooves, duet with Sarah Vaughan or Cleo Lane, Mama's notes strong and belonging on a black disc. But instead of cutting LPs, she cooks, sweeps, scrubs, and is still singing Happiness is a Thing Called Joe, years after Joe left her alone with the kids and some of the records. On Saturday nights after she wakes from her dreams of dirty laundry and dust, Mama escapes, sometimes takes me with her to the Clock piano bar. When we stroll in, Claude winks, beams a smile wide as his keyboard, and plunks the first note, the first few bars of Born to Lose, a tune he knows Mama has sung ever since Happy Joe left. Mama swivels her stool around to face me, sighs at the ice swirling around the bottom of her glass, and says, "You know, honey, at 40 years old, I can't think of any job I'd like to do, nothing except be Cleo Lane's personal confidant." Then she closes her brown blues-filled eyes and slams a few for the courage to reach those low, reckless notes with Claude at the clock in the middle of the night. Oh, the good life, full of fun, seems to be the ideal. Yes, the good life lets you hide all the sadness you feel. And I listen to my mama and know that somehow the music will make home forever home, no matter how bleak, no matter how long we are gone, the music slips underneath our sleep, etches grooves in our dreams, and nothing else ever stays so close for so long. So that's for my mom. And I'm grateful to have grown up with that music, special music. Okay, this is called What a Molcajete Holds. A molcajete is the mortar and pestle. And you know, it's really big in Mexico because that's where how they grind the corn to make tortillas, right? And I have my grandmother's, a molcajete. And so this is thinking about that, what a molcajete holds. Despite my drawers full of knives and spoons, cutting boards, spatulas, ceramic ramekins, when I blend spices, I must place them in her molcajete. Press the 3-generation pestle against cloves to shatter them. Grind cominos y ajo in the same circular motion as the tides that softened stones fused to form its mortar. I fold my right hand over hers and hers and hers. Their wrinkles a reminder that the skin is now loosening from my carpal bones, every piece of me pulled toward earth. Although she stands behind me, and another behind her, and another, our shadows oscillate on the tile floor, skin smoothed in silhouette, coffee-colored heads blocking light. We have always stood on the verge of fracture, voices flitting like wings away from seams between the stones tight in our palms. But hummingbirds feast every 10 minutes, so we crush the flavors into our membranes, feed one another. It's the molcajete. I still have that. I mean, it's old. Mine is old, but I love it. I love having it. Okay, I'm gonna skip ahead to a poem. This is a poem I wrote on a commission. As the laureate, you get commissions, and they're hard poems to write because you're writing for a very general audience. You're trying to stay away from cliche, but you're often writing about these big, grand kind of topics, and it's really hard. So there was one commission I had to write a poem on a certain topic for the Martin Luther King Day celebration at the Capitol, and I had to sit on the dais, and Tony Evers was like right there, and I had to write this invocation poem and deliver it. And then I got an invitation to write a poem for the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction and the Wisconsin Arts Board. They come together and they have this really beautiful program where they ask the poet laureate to write a poem on a topic. They give you a topic. My topic was the collaboration was the topic. And then they have an artist make a piece of visual art that's in conversation with that poem or somehow, influenced by the poem. And then they have a playwright creates a play where they use maybe parts of the poem in the play. And then they have composers write for both orchestra and chorus. And they'll use the poem in the choral. And then they'll be putting up a website in October that will have all these pieces on it. And teachers write, like master teachers write curriculum, so that those pieces can be used in classrooms. And so they gave me the topic of collaboration, and this is what I wrote. It's called Third Mind. Come, join the muralists, the flash mob, the duet, the orchestra, the choir, the tango, salsa, two-step. Let's toss all our images, ideas, and dreams on the table like marbles, each of our colorful spheres catching light and rolling to one another. Let's slide our tiny worlds around as if they were under a magician's cups. Mix and switch, swap and scramble, even collide. Yes, make a mess with me. Play like jazz musicians in a session, my thoughts riffing off yours and yours off mine, until we reach a third mind, free from worry about which color was yours or which word was mine. Make with me a fresh harmony, a new vision born of open ears and eyes. When we let go our egos, trust another, take a risk, our imaginations never starve. Like bees, they cross-pollinate. Like bats, they feed one another, weave dynamic networks. Like clownfish and anemones, they build shelters for the wild sparks in each of us. Third mind demands we loosen our fists, quit grasping tightly as vices onto what we think we know. It challenges us more than the toughest math problem, but when we relax into the dance, our feet find patterns we never knew existed. We inspire, we energize, we transform. So you bring the thread and I'll bring the needle. You bring the bottle of blue and I'll bring the glob of green. How many aquamarines will spill from our hands? You swing the racket and I'll serve the ball, but let's ditch the competition. Your creativity plus mine equals an agile, resilient mind, a whole new sky. Like birds flying in a V, we might be each other's compass. After all, who are we but a tapestry of parents who beget us, teachers whose mouths sound out marks on a page until we can read, bus drivers who transport us to our futures, farmers who grow wheat that bakers knead into our bread, neighbors who bring lemonade and Band-Aids when we scrape our knees, doctors who set our broken bones, ancestors whose ancient eyes still shine through our own. We are the fruit of collaboration, a third mind shaped by sharing, as is the hug, as is the kiss, reminding us that we are loved. So that, it had to be easy enough that like middle school and high school students could understand it as well. So that was another challenge. I was like, okay, I gotta get to that reading level, you know, and so that was that. I would like to read a few animal poems. I love the outdoors. My husband, Roberto, and I used to walk all the time out in nature. Now I'm so busy that we haven't done as much of it, but hopefully we will again soon. And I love, I just love all the other creatures, all the other beings that I feel their lives are just as important as our own. And this poem is titled Recognition. And is that the one I was going to? Oh no, I'll do this other one first. I'm going to do a sad one first, and then I'll change that mood up quite a bit. 61, okay. Then I'll read some much lighter ones. So this is called Sandbagger's Knockdown, and it came from reading a newspaper article from a headline. I'm going to just read the poem, and then I'll tell you the headline later. Only to perch on sun-soaked logs, to migrate or nest, will a snapping turtle leave water. Only for eggs that evolved 40 million years ago will she plod through the rough, drag her dinosaur tail and wrinkled chins across fairways to the open sand trap where the hackers tee off. Shalidra serpentina's tiger-striped eyes can see straight above her. Watch the 5-iron lunge at her head before cracking chinks, busting bloody holes in her carapace. Still she will not budge, this olive-skinned mother whose ancestors survived a 6-mile-wide meteorite blitz, its nuclear winter, the end of an age. This elder whose forebear faced the great flood and offered the world her back, bludgeoned to death in a Wisconsin bunker. The cold-blooded creature had blocked the man's chip shot, his chance at birdie, bragging rights, and a round of high life for the losers at the bar. And the headline was Turtle Dead After Severely Beaten on Golf Course. So I had to write it because I was like, who does that? Who does that? And sometimes the only thing I can do is write when those things happen, because you have no control, right? And the only thing I can do is write it down, right? So that happened. Okay, now animals in a positive light. Let me do this one for my husband who drove with me here in the storm, Roberto. You know the area, do you know the Holy Hill area? Have you been there to Holy Hill up by West Bend? So it's a big, it's a Catholic church, like a cathedral, but it's in a very beautiful area. I mean, it's, you know, some people go there for the church, and some people go there just for the beauty of the area and the walk and the climbing. And the way it's built is there's like this, I don't know how to describe it, but it's like a big wall that is open on either side. And you walk around it this way and around it that way. And there's windows in it. And then there's the door you open to go into the church, right? And so we walked around and we looked at these windows, and there was a hummingbird up in the corner, way up high. These windows were tall, high, off the ground. And it was sitting there, and it couldn't leave because it kept seeing its own reflection. And this is what my beautiful husband did, okay? Thin air, it's called thin air. Trapped by a bend in the basilica, a bird hums inside at the hummingbird outside, glass trilling against its frenzied whir. A man I'll never stop loving climbs the wall, hovers on a sill stretching to grasp at anxious reflections. How many heartbeats to escape inside the outside of joy, to turn a green wing toward his dark palm, closing off light. Lightly palms globe the terror song, carry it to a garden like a sacred stone, on a holy hill that keeps our crutches, fingers unfurl in a lemniscate of wings. So he scaled literally that wall. I don't know how, I still don't know how you got up there. He got up there and he got that little bird. And of course it was petrified, right? Until he could release it. Didn't it fly right to the red flowers and start eating? And then this is another animal poem, another bird poem. I love crows. I just love them because they're so smart. They're so smart. If you are mean to them, or if you are especially good to them, like you feed them, or you help an injured crow, they will remember you for the rest of their lives, your face. They will remember your face, and they will pass it on to the next generation, and the next generation will know your face. So if you tormented them, they will put up a ruckus like you won't believe, because they're warning all the other crows, this is a bad person who hurt me, and the next generation will remember you too and do it too, right? If you're good to them, they will bring you gifts. They will find like stuff people lost, and they're just like amazing birds. So this is called recognition. The crow will remember you so well, she will pass your visage on to her children, grandchildren. And if you whip a rock at her, if you poke a crooked stick in her nest, she will forever follow you, ringing her bell, a siren to warn the whole flock you are not to be trusted. You better wear a helmet, lest she dive and drill a hole in your head deeper than the one already present. Let her instead remember the shine in your eyes when you spotted the sheen of her blue-black feathers, the cackle in your laughter honoring her croak and caw, rattle and honk, so many voices. Your gasp when you watched her onyx beak drop the seed you left for her into her fledgling's gaping mouth, when you found the silver charm she gifted you. Let her remember the lightness of your limbs when you spread your arms, almost tried to fly away with her flock to a secret forest only friends are allowed to enter. A crow, yay, crow. Okay, I am going to skip some poems and get closer to wrapping things up here. I thought I would read this one simply because it's kind of fun. I've been writing a lot of poems about being middle-aged, growing older, because it's a trip. You never feel inside like you're as old as you've gotten, right? I mean, I still feel 25 inside. And then I look in the mirror and I go, or you know, I feel that whatever sciatic nerve acting up or whatever, and I remember, oh, I guess I'm not 25, you know, I'm 64, right? So it's just a wild ride, right? Getting older. And so I've been writing poems, having fun with that a little bit. And this one uses the metaphor of chickens. It's called Before I Succumb. Retirement has resulted in constant clucking about elderly abuse, cramped quarters, and not enough flexibility to dodge the hatchet's dead-on swing. No spring chicken, I am the hen they will call from the flock now that I manage only an egg or two. But that's okay, as each day I've greeted morning glories at the fence, flexed my neck like great-grandmother T-Rex, donned her fluorescent pink plumes, ginger tail feathers. The new chicks yip through holes in their shipping box, maws open to raindrops and fingers pinching feed. I feel no filial affection for those bobbleheads, but only an ellipsis separates their querulous lives from mine. I'm on an infinite vacation now and no longer wish to perseverate about the end, that longest of dial tones. So I'll primp, plump my lips, proudly quiver my waddle, and jiggle my big booty before I succumb to the deep fake. Let you catch me before I leave you a crummy quill instead of a ballpoint to write my name. So, that's getting older. It's kind of like that. Here, I'm going to end with two last poems, and this is called Mercy. Uncorset my fat suit and bury me in a chorus of strawberries, a forest haunted by cicada shells left clinging to toadstools and stones. Let bear paws mix me in a handful of honey should bees still swarm this noxious earth. Give wolves license to muddle me like a sugary cocktail or effusive stew. No box. I beg you to strip me of this red-nosed, yellow-collared clown suit and kayak me out to the aquamarine cemetery where fall cell phones and lighters, water shoes and dimes, earrings and locked chests full of secrets. Let my spent shell sup like a suckerfish on this dumpster and clean its sullied floor. Have mercy on the home we have poisoned, blue body we have boiled like the soup we are destined to become. Have mercy and add a bit of mint before you wrap me in clean linen if you must. Do not fasten my shroud, but let it flutter in the wind's whistle that carries me to the velvet ear of a dog. That's my wish for a green burial. An eco burial. I do not want a box. I do not want formaldehyde. I want to be put right in the ground, and I want to be mushrooms and fungus and whatever else, and feed whatever else is going to grow, right? And so I wrote this so that was ever left, they have their instructions, right? Do not put me in a box. Roberto, all right? You've got to, there are places you can do that. There's a place out by Madison, a beautiful forest, yeah. And the last one I'm going to read came from somebody in our government who actually said that empathy was a dangerous New Age concept. Empathy, for which we are lacking, right? And so I wrote, for those who call empathy a dangerous New Age concept. She is older than Pando, alligator ancestors, and glass sponges. Older than stromatolite fossils built by ancient bacterial colonies. With us before Eve's apple, empathy is older than God. In fact, she may have invented him. But we have stuffed her into the furthest recesses of ourselves. We barely recognize her until she ravages us inside out, curls into a snarl backed in a corner, and releases an unchained riot, a scream howl, a dagger-toothed bark in the brain's pitch black matter. More often, empathy is an echo. She might wear a stranger's filthy rags, shiver when the wind's teeth tear through them, and if she cannot bear it, wash and mend them or unzip her puffer coat, let it fall like a cloud upon another's sunken shoulders as if a gift from the sky. She wears a silver whistle round her neck, blasts its alarm when small men in big gear roll up ready to smash windows, rip neighbors from cars, houses, courtrooms, punch, kick, zip-tie their children's wrists. Empathy is a tidal wave that will knock you off your feet if pride moves you more than kindness. She never stops wincing at the thought of Lorca falling, poems fluttering out of his pockets. Sometimes she sits by herself in the rain so long she rusts. But empathy's true finish is never matte. She reflects. She spills her shine on puddles, ponds, window panes. You can call her compassion if you wish, but she is not some distant pity, stiff, sorry. Empathy's cottage is full of pallets on the floor. The first folks to open their eyes in the morning reach for the closest pair of shoes, perhaps their neighbors, and trip over each other on their way to light the stove, start the coffee for rising souls. So I will leave you with that poem about empathy, and may we all cultivate that sense of empathy for one another, not feeling sorry for somebody, but being able to feel their pain, being able to feel their joy, being able to feel their hardship, and recognize that it could so easily be us in that place. Thank you for inviting me on this stormy night.